Let's record. Okay. Hi guys, good evening and happy Deepavali. I'm very happy that some of you have decided to use this holiday to spend your holiday coming into our webinar. Yes, traditionally our webinars are on Wednesday, but Dr. Go couldn't make it yesterday, so we have decided to have it today. And Dr. Go was a practicing clinician who has now gone, to consult in other ways. Okay, maybe you tell us more about your consultation in other ways, Dr. Go. So without further ado, maybe we'll let Dr. Go speak.
Thank you, Betty. Thanks. Well, first of all, blessed Diwali to all our friends who are celebrating it. And I wasn't sure initially that when Betty asked me to do this, I said, "Are you sure that you're going to have it on a Deepavali and there'll be people?"
I didn't realize it was Deepavali.
Yeah. So that was my first question. So Betty gave me, say, "Yeah, you'll be there." I said, "Okay, fine." So thanks for making the time. And then the second question I asked Betty was, "What do you expect from me? What would you like me to talk about?" He says, "Up to you." And so that was so I was given a blank sheet of paper to do this, and so I assume that the audience are clinician mainly.
Yes, mainly are clinicians. I see some even specialists.
Okay. Good.
And I gave you a blank sheet basically because I couldn't really understand what you were doing.
Right.
I mean, of course, your part that when you were the medical director of UMSC, I can understand at least the scope of your job. But currently, I really, have no corporate experience whatsoever. So, yeah.
Right. So I decided to prepare a mind map so that to give some framework. So I sent to Betty this evening. I said, is this what you want to talk about? She said yes. So if this is not quite your topic, you blame her. Okay. So my background. I graduated in '98. So it's probably 20 over years in healthcare. I probably went through 3 phases of my career. I started off as a clinical practitioner when I was trained in UK. I did my housemanship in NHS, and I got my MRCP Part 1 in 2000 February. And then I came back to Malaysia. My initial plan was supposed to be joining the government service, MOH. That time MOH actually was going through a relocation from Jalan Chandrasari to Putrajaya. So somehow along the way, like many of our fellow colleagues, you have your file somehow. You went disappeared for a couple of months and you wasn't sure where your career is heading. So I went through the same thing. And so while doing that, I kept myself busy because, as I said, I've been an entrepreneurial, so a medical doctor trapped in entrepreneur body, I would say. And so while waiting for the placement, I decided to start a company. That's the year 2000, and I started a medical software company called Amorphous. We do medical software because I can do programming since high school. So I developed some mobile apps. Those days in the year 2000, mobile apps is unheard of. I started doing mobile apps for a pharmaceutical company. They paid pretty well. They paid 6 figures. As imagine, those days it's a lot of money. One person plus a few other 2 or 3 programmers. We have business from Wyeth in Kelana Jaya. We do mobile applications for the sales reps, manage their samples they give the doctors and all that. And along the way, I did the medical IT part of business sort of flourish, and I spent a lot of time doing health IT. Then subsequently, I end up in New Zealand, Malaya, and became the medical director on their private wing. So that was my 3rd chapter of my career. I became a health management professional, and then the last 10 years somehow transitioned into healthcare investments because I have been taking up a leadership role in a listed company in Hong Kong that owns a group of hospital. And we turned it around, we sold it to Tsinghua universities. Then I came back, now partner with a private equity in Singapore, which invested heavily in the region. So now I'm actually managing a group of assets in Vietnam, third largest hospital group in Vietnam. And then MCO somehow brought me back. Yeah, so along the way, I actually had done a few rounds of entrepreneurship. I founded 3 companies so far, exited 2. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm the expert in this area, but the last 4 years, because of my involvement in private equity, we have a lot of interactions and exposure with medical entrepreneur, because almost every week we receive business plans from various medical entrepreneurs. So from there, you also learn, all sort of different ideas, because we have to decide whether you want to fund it. So that was the basis of Betty thinks that I'm an expert. I think I'm not quite, because not very successful medical entrepreneur, because I still can't retire. I still work very hard. I still have to work on the public holiday. So yeah, not quite there, but it's a journey. So I'm going to share whatever I have experienced so far, in a very simple framework. So some of you maybe some of you are probably expert entrepreneur in the audience, because we don't have this interaction. I don't know who's sitting there out there. So what exactly it is? Oh, hang on. Try again.
But how do you come about to the job of the medical director of UMSC? You have no previous history.
I've been doing, so I started a management consulting outfit. We do clinical software and process work. We actually have Ministry of Health as customer. I've done a couple of projects. For example, we are the one who deploy COTDS, computerized OT management documentation systems, Ministry of Health. We done national ICU audit, the software that collects data for Ministry of Health ICUs, and provide data to the ICU, National ICU Committee. So these are all.
And this was when you came back from UK.
Yes, I came back from UK, because in UK I was actually involved in Y2K as well. That's how my first exposure to clinical informatics. Because we are also a bit of hybrid, because deep down I do programming since 1980s, 88, 89. So I've been, if I'm not doing medicine, I would have been a software engineer today, probably in Silicon Valley, and became very rich. Maybe co-founded Facebook, but it didn't.
Or not.
Yeah. So but while we're doing medical software, we realized that actually process and management, process engineering, and all that are very crucial in software design. And that's number one. Number two is we get access to data. I do analytics as a hobby. We analyze data. So you give me a bunch of data, I will be able to crunch it. And that gave us a lot of insight that helps in the management of the hospitals. So among the hospital clients that we have in that company that I founded, Asunta Hospital was my client when they first implement their hospital information system. When IJN, National Health Institute, is converting their track care, the old version to the new MedTrack to the track care, they were my customer as well. So we've been doing pretty well as a software management firm. Then I bumped into SC's Holdings, which is their shareholder. Then they asked me, would you like to see what you can do for us? And so I gave them a plan. What I think will be the important strategies to turn it around, process re-engineered the thing. And so they offer me this job as a COO initially, as a Chief Operating Officer, and didn't expect me to stay on. Actually, they thought I will mess it up, but somehow I got myself 3 terms in that institution. Yeah, so that somehow gave me a very important foundation for hospital management, which is an important foundation for hospital investment. Yeah.
So when you actually went to UMSC as the COO, so you had a day job. What you sold off your IT company?
Yeah, I sold IT company. I've been one thing about entrepreneurship, which I'll tell you, is don't get too emotion attached, right? So when the price is right,
Okay.
you
You will
let
tell us. You will tell us.
because you
Okay.
can start another one a few years down the line. So that's what I did.
Okay.
That's one reason. But of course, you also get a bit bored after you have quite a lot of Ministry of Health project, and they are not very good paymaster. After a while, you get a bit fed up.
Yeah.
And so someone said, would you like to sell? I said, of course, I will sell it to you, right? So that's how I exited.
Okay.
Yeah, it's getting very tedious because as the project gets bigger, you have a lot of risks in credit risk. I mean, because the customers are not paying, but you have delivered a job. Then you have regulatory risks. There's a lot of code bidang you need to fulfill, and it gets more and more complicated. After a while, you're just wondering, why do I have to do this? And then, as we enter into 2009, your niche disappear because when I first entered health informatics, there's not many doctors are able to do what I do because they are not digital natives. Or those doctors of my generations are not born with computers. I'm one of those early adopters to the technology. Then you have these young doctors that come out. They are pretty good, they can do what you do, and they are willing to clock in more hours than you. Then you say, oh, okay, it's getting harder, and they are really sort of slowly getting very crowded. What we call in market, there's a lot of people who are similar proposition than you. So that's when I decided that I should transition into something different, using informatics as a foundation. Then management will be the natural progression, right? So as more and more doctors get into management, I thought, then I better move into private equity investments. So now in this space, in private equity, there's not many doctors around as well. So yeah, and because it's the barrier entry is getting higher. Of course, it's harder to get into those what I'm currently doing. Yeah, and then I realized that okay, there are a lot of healthcare management resources get a bit crowded, but that not many there to get out of the country. So I decided, let's so I relocated the whole family to Shanghai and did a project. Then I did Vietnam. Then I realized not many people are in that kind of similar value propositions. So maybe I should just
that's right.
Summarize what
Since we are in a small group, please feel free to ask questions at any time. If you raise your hand, you can actually unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I figure out, I think you all know what is entrepreneurship. We don't have to go in. I think I just sort of highlight the lessons learned being entrepreneurs myself. I think a common question because we interacted with a lot of medical entrepreneurs and various stages of medical entrepreneurship. There are people who already started a company because we are private equity, so they probably have a business that is really certain size. They are looking for capital for growth, so we talk to them. So they are more senior ones. There are people who are very early stage, got one bright idea, a eureka moment last month. They heard, hey, your fellow doctors, should I do this? So this common question, FAQ, am I ready? So I thought it will be a common question. And then the second part will be how to figure it out whether you are ready. So am I ready? I think there are three important things to think about, right? I call it the three caps. Capability, am I ready from capability standpoint? Whether I have a capacity readiness or whether I have capital readiness. You need to think about these three things because you want to be a boss, everyone wants to, and you want to be a boss, you have to be ready to take risks, right? Because clinical career, unfortunately, making us very, very risk adverse. We are very risk adverse compared to any other profession that I come across. Clinicians are very risk adverse because the nature of our work, it involves lives. we have been sort of instilled with this idea is risk management, right? Everything we do, right? Surgery, you consent, high risk consent is all about risk, 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 risk. So we are actually very risk adverse, right? So, but of course, in one hand, entrepreneurship is all being a boss. Or the glamour part of entrepreneurship is all trying to be a boss. So you want to be a boss, make sure that you're ready for the loss. I always say, because risk and return go hand in hand. There's no such thing as high returns. You're going to be very rich and you're going to have good life without taking the risk. So this is the struggle, a common struggle that medical entrepreneur are struggling with. We are not like school dropouts who go into entrepreneurship. They are different because they are less at stake, right? We enter medical school if you could be funded by your parents who spend a lot of money, and you want to cross into something else which is unknown. This dichotomy is actually quite daunting. I find.
So you're saying that at this point of time, you're saying
Yeah,
that.
let
Hold on. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to ask something, Dr. Ng? Dr. Ng, you want to ask something?
You probably had a call.
Oh, okay. So actually, what you're saying is that we are taking a big risk if we change our career at any point of time when we want to be an entrepreneur. Is there any way that we can actually juggle both?
Yes, that's where I will talk about in how. You got to wait.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So it's like a checklist lah. Like before you do surgery,
Okay.
right? You have to do a checklist, right? So I think the 3 caps is a good way to. You have to ask yourself, am I ready? Because it's if you do half-heartedly, also very very difficult, I have to say. And so capability is then a lot of people say, do I get this? Do I have the skills for it? I think skill is not the most difficult part, right? Because as long as your entrepreneurship idea is medical, I think you have some of the skills. But of course, there are also clinicians who have ideas. They are going to different things outside medicine. That is also a form of entrepreneurship. So I don't have much experience in that. I'm assuming it's a medical entrepreneurship. You want to do what you are trained to do, but you're doing it differently as a boss, not as an employee. And then the courage part, you can't learn, or the skills part you can learn from books. There's a lot of books right out there. You just have to read. I think being a clinician, we read a lot. We can absorb a lot. I think it's important to read books. There are lots of resources out there. You got to read entrepreneurship biography, memoirs, or get some inspiration. Read Steve Jobs' biography. You read Elon Musk biographies, and you have to read very wide, and you have to read about Phil Knight, how he founded Nike. You get some inspiration when you read. I think that is quite useful. Read if you're not sure, but courage is really it's up to you. It's very intrinsic, right? So when can you make this move? It also depends on your how many dependencies. When you're younger, when I started, I was still young. I wasn't married, no kids, so I can take more risks, right? So I thought I have MRCP Part 1, then I can. I was ahead of my peers because I passed a bit earlier than my peers. I said, okay, I have 2 years. I give myself 2 years to fool around and try something else. If not, then I can always go back and do my Part 2. Give it a shot, right? So nothing to lose. I was very young when I graduated, so I said, yeah, okay, we still can take the risk. But as you get older, when your kids are in international school or your kids are just about to enter universities, your financial buffer gets smaller. You have a few mortgage. Then things is a bit different, right? So really depends on when you want to make the launch. But having said that, if you look at statistically, a lot of entrepreneurs actually are late starter. Also, not necessarily have to start as a young entrepreneur. They are later part in life. They only start venturing out. Capacity, That is very challenging for doctors. You don't have time. When you have time, you don't have money. When you have money, you don't have time. When you have both, you might not have health if you don't do it well. So these three things is always really a pain.
But if you have
Um,
time and money, at
and
one
health.
stage of life, you may not have the drive anymore.
Yeah. So it's three things, right? It's time, money, and health. They are interdependent. So when you have time and money, then you have health. You have two, but the other one don't have, right? So if you talk about entrepreneurship, I think you need to create time. Um, uh, I think that's the only way. I mean, you have to be very efficient. You have to very good time management, very resourceful. You need to know how to delegate. You need to learn new skills to do things faster, right? To get time. Right? So yeah, time is harder to raise. Money is easy to raise. So I will tell you later how to do it. So time is intrinsic again. You have to make time for it. Um, I personally think that so you have to prioritize, like you don't get married too early because entrepreneur. Because it's a time-consuming exercise when you start a family, right? So you have to find a very efficient wife.
Oh
I mean,
my
that's how
God.
I see it. Who's
No,
value
I
adding
don't
to
know
you,
this
right?
in the textbook.
Yeah. This one is live, right? It means that my wife will hear this now. But anyway, that's how I see it, and that's on the capacity part, and then of course the capital. In fact, the misperception is raising money is everything, but actually it's not. Um, Financial capital is probably the least important part of the capital. I think knowledge capital is number one. How well you know the business. I always feel that if you want to do business, or you want to go into entrepreneurship, you should try to go into the market that you are familiar, that you have a sufficient knowledge. Because if you're investor also, they won't invest in your business you are clueless about it, because you might be what I call Dunning-Kruger syndrome, right? You don't know what you don't know. Right? This is very dangerous to fund people like that. So knowledge capital is important, and your idea must be seen as intellectual property. Social capital is important. I think it's more so in Asia, when you have on the developing countries, when there's no proper ecosystem and structure to support you. Some countries in the very developed countries, they have incubation center, they have mentorship, coaching, they have a cradle fund to seed and all that hand holding process. If you have an idea, it can actually translate it into a business uh, uh, with lots of support that available. The ecosystem is well supporting your ideas to evolve. But in this part of the world, you don't have. You have to rely on social capital. Means that you need to be know to spend time to develop relationship. You need to know the right people. You need to know the right people who can help you, who give you right positive encouragement. You also will meet a bunch of people who will say, one, this is, you
Cannot be
will be,
done.
yeah, it cannot be done. You will have problems. It's so embarrassing. You're a doctor, why you do this, why the government didn't pay you enough, is it? All these things will come. I have this problem as well in the early days. Why you came back from UK and then, why you go and do software programming? Why bokang cho? What happened to you? How come ministry didn't even give you a position? Why you waited so long? Is your degree recognized or not? They even ask questions like that during Chinese New Year. Some relatives do that, right? So, yeah, you have to find the right people, mix around the right people who are able to help. Best is actually talk to entrepreneur who are successful, or they are also in the process. Then you can share notes, share experience, and you can get lesson learned. And I think most entrepreneurs will also want to do the same thing. Like me as an entrepreneur, I would like to share my experience, because I was just thinking, if you can try not to do what I did, these are 3 steps that I did. If I tell you now, you probably leapfrog it. You don't have to go through these whole steps. You probably will save, 6 months of headaches and tears and sweats, right?
But
So
then every part for everyone every business idea is all different. Don't you think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah, but the general principle is the same.
You think so?
Yes, it's the same. As I show you subsequent slides, you realize that
Okay.
it's the same. I think business principle is, there's certain generic structure that takes up probably 80% of the structure. There are, and when we look at business, we also look at similar things. When we want to invest, right, there are certain things that we look at. Yeah, I think it is the same. It's just a different industry and all that. That the differences are the minority part of the difference, right? All business have to make money.
Okay.
All business have to be sustainable. All business have to do good and make money. If make money and not do good, then those are illegal business. So you shouldn't touch that. And all business will have impact somehow or another. If it's good impact, it's social impact, there's a good business. And all business will need to do well if the numbers are managed well. Fiscal discipline has to be there. And business can only be successful if there are leadership in the driver's seat, right? It has to be led by your leaders. Otherwise, you can start the business, do well, and then you will disintegrate. I mean, we have seen
Yeah.
that, right? So these are principles the same. That's why they are business books, management books, because they are all talking about the general principle. If you read a lot of those books, you realize that they all more or less talk about the same thing. And then there are also serial entrepreneurs who do multiple business. I mean, Elon Musk is one classic example. They do, and I'm sure there is a certain generic formula they use, but they just keep changing industries, right? And so I think it's about the same. Different countries as well is about the same. In fact, healthcare is so similar. When I was in China, 80% of the operating principle is the same, right? What I learned in UMSC's 80% can be applied in Chinese hospitals. When I was in Vietnam, it's the same thing. And when my project in Singapore, it's the same thing. The difference is the 20%, right? So I think because all hospitals, if you are trained in UK, you come back to Malaysia, you won't go into a totally different system. We do the same thing. We take history, we do an examination, we run tests, and then it's about the same. The CT scanners looks the same. The MRI looks the same brand, same vendors, same drugs. Yeah, not that different. The only difference are language barriers and regulatory barriers. Everything else is the same. That's why the business can go global because it's the same. That's why the internet world products can be going global so fast, can go viral so fast, because there are similar requirements. Human is not that much different actually among different parts of the world. I mean, at least is my perception, right? So that's the first part. Am I ready? The second part is I always said you must figure out. I met a lot of entrepreneurs. They say, go how to start. I said you have to figure out. What I'm trying to say, figure out, figuratively speaking, is it has to be translated to numbers. Ideas are cheap, right? I have these ideas and all. So I always say, okay, how much do you need? This is my next question. Because we are investors, right? So, I haven't thought about it. I was like, yeah, that means you are not figuring it out. When you say figure out, means that you have to put in numbers. Whether you are well versed in Excel spreadsheet or not, you have to write it down somehow. At the back of envelope, also okay. You have to write it down. You have to put the numbers to that. How big is the market? I said, how big is the market? How much money can you make? How much money do you need to start, right? So these are all numbers. And of course, they are in the more glamorous way, because you have a business plan, you have where's your business, where's your deck, your PowerPoint deck, do you have a budget? There are a lot of templates out in the internet. You just go and search business plan template, you get lots of it. Of course, that is a plan inverted comma. What you really need to do is you really have an idea, you have figured it out, and then you just have to put it into the aesthetics of those templates for certain audience. If they are institutional investors, they need you to put the proper documents and all that. If you are angel investors, yeah, it looks like it will work. We do back envelope calculation, it's a risk that we can take. You would have seeded the money to kick off the project. So that's that. And then figure out, of course, as the business grow, there are a few very important financial concepts we have to master. We cannot say, oh, we are doctors, we don't need figure. I think that's wrong. Then you sure fail. If you do medicine, because most of us probably hate mathematics, that's why you're not doing medicine. Or we think we cannot count, that's why we are not doing accounting. Although the result is good, we should have done accounting if you are. But I think that mentality has to change, because I think ability to handle numbers are very important, and make an effort to understand accounting terms. If you are come from science streams like myself, I never done accounts my whole life. We have to start from scratch. Basically, again, read books, right? And so the simple things like uh, you hear terms like what's the revenue, top line, EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciations, and amortizations, which is important things you need to know the concept what it is. The cost, the COGS, the cost of goods of sales, what's OPEX, CAPEX, PAT, PBT, internal rate of return, IRR, enterprise value, which is very important. One day you if you are mature in your entrepreneurship, which is the enterprise value, how much is your worth for your company? How do you value those company, and what's your balance sheet, the BS, not bullshit, BS balance sheet is important. So all this you need to know how to read, because one day, if you own business, I don't think it's fair. A good entrepreneur should be totally outsource this thing to another person, like your CFO. So that's not. If you feel that you don't have the ability to master this very well, then you need to have good partners. You don't have to found a company by yourself. You co-founded with a few individuals that can complement your weaknesses. And if you feel numbers are not your cup of tea, then get a good partner who can handle the numbers. Because ideas that is not figured out in numbers, those ideas remains ideas. You will not get funded. You will not get kickoff. That's how I see it. And a lot of people will keep talking of ideas. Ideas are cheap, right? Then one day, because you cannot cross into the figure out and make it a business, somebody else who came out with the same idea, and then one day you say, "Yeah, that was my idea," you feel very, very resentful when that happens. So
I don't know why. Sorry, you were unmuted. Sorry,
sorry,
okay.
yeah.
You were
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure which part of my
Yeah. It's okay. It's just you ended the sentence by ideas.
Right, ideas are cheap. I think it's important that you have to evolve that idea into figures. If not, one day you realize that the ideas will be taken up by somebody else, because everyone will have the same idea. The one that can figure it out will be the one that actually will take it to the next level, right? And okay, so that's what entrepreneurship. They give you a taste of it. These are not, because I was thinking there are a lot of textbook out there, entrepreneurship. You go and buy from Amazon and all that. So so those things you can find out yourself. You do enough search online. I rather put things which is proprietary, which is what came out from my mind and my experience. You won't find this structure somewhere else. This is purely from experience. So this is the gist of it, of what it is, and how to do it. I think there are 4 types of business in entrepreneurship, medical entrepreneurship. 4 type business model. This is always the question that we want to ask as investors. That we say, what is your business model? A good idea, right? Because business model in the layman term is who's going to pay for it. Idea is good, yeah, wonderful. This can solve this world problem. Yeah, who's paying for it? Ideas that cannot have a clear identifications of who is a customer is a lousy idea, because those are not business ideas. And to me, there are 4 types. I think everyone always tends to think that entrepreneurship is about building business. The idea is original. I have to start this myself. Let's build business. Okay, that's one way. But to be honest, that's not the only way. Sometimes we see there are potential of buying business. Then you re-engineer it after you buy a business. Someone who wants to retire, you buy the business, buy at someone's clinic, but then so you don't have to start from scratch, right? So that's another opportunity. You can what I call borrow business. That's okay. In healthcare, we do this all the time. You wanted to be you want to start a cardiology center. I don't know if Dr. Tay is. You park yourself in somebody else environment first, right? You go to hospital, you park yourself, you pay extra attention how they run the business. In Chinese, it's called 偷师, right? You learn, so you know, like UMSC is a very good. Last time when I run UMSC, I know a lot of medical entrepreneurs using that because they come from public. You ask them to jump straight to private, start their own center. They feel wow, too big a gap because they weren't sure, am I ready? They start as a UMSC practitioner. They do 3 sessions a week. They get a taste of it. Then they say, oh, am I ready? Yeah, actually, I'm quite popular. I didn't realize that. Well, if 3 sessions I make this much, if I'm going to do it full time and run myself, you know, so those are called borrowing. You incubate yourself in another business environment platform, and then you launch yourself when you are ready. When you have sufficient capital financially, you have sufficient courage that you need time to get yourself warm up, then you get out. It's very common in medicine, as a lot of business out there are like that. So is a third method which is quite common. And the last one is called birth. Birth is your birthright. You inherited from your
I see. Okay.
parents, right? So that is also need planning, you know. Yeah, that is, you know, that have happened before, and you might think that is you will be able to have the business continuity, and the investors will continue to back you up the same way. Trust me, it's not the same, right? You have a big shoes to fill, and you might want to do it differently. So there are 4 different type of business model, common business model in medical entrepreneurship. So that's the 4 things, and of course risk. Textbook will tell you macro risk, micro risk, or I mean, I think there's only a few very important risks that we need to think about from my perspective. Medicine has this thing called key man risk. Key man risk is very common, meaning that the whole business is doing very well because you are a superstar, rock star doctor, right? You can be a skin specialist, very famous in the 1980s, 1990s, you're doing well. 2000, you get slowed down, but you're still doing well. And one fine day, you say, oh, I want to retire. And then say, I want to sell my clinic. You realize nobody wants to buy it because there's no asset. The whole business, even you have your P&L shows people that you are making this profit. Those profits, 99% comes from you. And this person is called key man risk. Or this whole clinic, there are 2 key guys who take out 80% of the revenue contribution. These are key man risk. One of them suddenly had a heart attack, cannot work anymore, or had a stroke, cannot work anymore. To us as investors, that is a risk. So whenever business have the element of key man risk, which is very common in medicine, it's less valuable to us. So it must always comes as a team, right? Medical entrepreneur, if you want your ideas to be funded, you need to have a team of people. Means that they have some redundancy within the business. Otherwise, we are very scared of the most important rock star suddenly decided, you know, cannot do, or he's not happy, he wants to leave, right? Then everything collapses. Or you invest a very expensive medical equipment, which is only 2 key men who can how to operate it. One of them decided to don't want to work anymore, or the partnership fails. Then we have this risk, right? So that's one. Regulatory risk is important risk. In Malaysia, in other countries, because healthcare has always been highly regulated industries, we need to make sure that is taken care of. Medical legal risk, usually neglected in the whole due diligence process, but medical investors like us, we will know high risk medical specialties. We will also estimate the legal exposure, so we have to put a cost to it, and then another risk which we need to worry about, very commonly neglected, is credit risk. You assume in any business, you assume that whatever you put in your spreadsheets, right? You say, oh, I have customers, X number of customers, make 100,000. Okay, so 100,000. Revenue recognitions and cash flows are two different things. 100,000 that you make doesn't mean that you have 100,000 cash inside your bank, right? So this is what we call credit risk. Out of the credit sales, there's a bad debt in healthcare is very high, because there are people who are not happy. You say, you talk to my lawyer, I'm not paying. So your 100,000, maybe 20,000 of them are people who don't want to pay, people who dispute the payment, and then you have bad debts that is age very long time, right? You have MCOs who doesn't pay you on time, common problem in Malaysia, all right? So or they went bust, so you already incurred a cost, customer, it's all sits inside your accounts as accounts receivables, more than 90 days. So all these are important things that we need to actually figure out. A finance person would have estimated that for you. If not, you will run a situation where you're running a business where your cost is fixed, it's quite high, your rental, your renovation, your staff, and then you thought your money that you can collect this much, but then you forgot that there's a credit risk, there's a bad debts, there's aging. Then you realize that, oh, you don't have enough money, cash crunch, and that is a very common problem. In fact, we see this medical business in distress very common, and recently we see a lot. Those people who spend a lot of money renovating, getting ready. Say, I'm going to be big in Indonesian patients. Then suddenly you realize that COVID just closed down the whole travel sectors, and now you're overexposed. So so all these are some of the risk factors, and of course there are a whole bunch of risks. If you buy stocks, IPO and all that, you should read. There's a fine print of risks, in the prospectus, because risk is an important aspect of business. A good business is the one that mitigate the risk, right? Then last part of the question will be like, when am I ready for entrepreneurship? I said now, because I think there's no right time for it. I always believe that if you feel like you want to do it, just do it. There's only one way to find out, is actually do it. Do it small, do it part-time, give it a shot, take some risk, take some commitment and do it. Otherwise, you can talk until cows come home, you can never get it off the ground. Because successful entrepreneurs are the one who done multiple serial entrepreneurship, and they also have a lot of failures. If you ask Elon Musk, he has done a lot of failures as well. And what we see is the one that's successful. Same as well as for me as well. I've done a lot of projects here and there. Some of them it just went bust. Some of them I lost a lot of money. Some of them I make it. So it's always there's only one way to find out. You can sit there and think. You can ask advice. Nothing like you try it out and then calculated risk lah. Of course, you need to know how much resources you have, the time you have. You have to try it out and test the market, test the idea. And there are different stages on entrepreneurship. There's our term is called pre-seed. Pre-seed means that when you first started business, the money comes from yourself. You have to save enough money to do it, and so you have to make sure your whatever savings you have versus your idea match. You cannot have too big ideas, then your money only this much. You forgot to factor your son's education, your retirement fee, or then you have to match it. A lot of entrepreneurs started their business with apart from yourself, they have friends and family. You have good friends who are believing in you. They loan you money to start the business, or your family, your spouse who support you. Like, okay, honey, this money I let you pursue your dream, right? So that is typically how entrepreneur starts. And then that's pre-seed, and then when the seed capital comes in, there are financial institutions out there, banks, Don't borrow too much. Some good ideas you can get financing. These are all called financial institutions. And one category I forgot to mention is the angel investors. There's another group, people who are investors who are get very early stage in the venture, contribute some capital. And then you have nowadays we have a equity crowdfunding platforms where people use internet crowdfunding platform, ECF, to raise funds, where a lot of people chip money in. Then after that, there will be different series. In the entrepreneurship world, you say, it is Series A. It means that after seed round, you have first bunch of fundraising, Series B, second fundraising. So this will have two groups of distinctive investors. One of them is called the venture capitalists. These are people who manage funds on behalf of institution. They are a little bit more risk-taking, aggressive. They fund early stages project. Then subsequently, you'll be another group called private equity, which they are managing funds from a larger institution investors in subsequent series. So different stages of the business have different preferred way of getting financial resources to provide the growth, to fund the growth. And I personally think that one other aspect that is very important will be the how you structure the entire ideas. There are two ways to fund ideas, right? You can fund with shareholders funds, means that you put money, and then part of it you borrow some money. I see a lot of businesses that we are investing come across. A lot of medical business didn't get this right. There's that equity ratio you have to consider. What I'm trying to say is, you only have this much of money, you shouldn't do a business that is very big, very aggressive, very grandeur, ambitious on the debt, because debt are the borrowed money, right? We have seen businesses whereby shareholder funds are very small. They borrow a lot of money from the banks to run the business, and that money comes with interest. Then you realize that at some point they just couldn't make money because the interest will catch up on them. So a good way to start business is you must always maintain a very balanced debt equity ratio. Means that maybe 50-50, means that if I need 100,000 for this business, or I need 1 million for this business, my debt ratio, my equity portion should be at least 50% of that. Then you want to borrow the other 50%. I think that is a good start. Of course, the bigger your equity portion, the better it is, because that money are not free; they comes with the interest. And but in a situation where we see a lot of business, especially capital-intensive business like hospitals and all that, they are heavily financed by the bank, and very hard to make money because your interest is very high. So that structure is important. This one, usually you get experienced financial person, a good finance friend to help you. I think that will be very useful. And finally, in business, there's a term called exit, right? So when you're going to cash out, medical entrepreneurs are too. I think most people will wish that one day their business will be able to cash out. Meaning they can exit, meaning that they can either, in the financial world, they call it liquidity event, means that you list it, you float it in the stock market. That's when you cash out, or you do a trade sale. Somebody else come and say, "Can you sell it to me?" Or you get acquired by another bigger institution. Because that event is called liquidity event. That's how medical entrepreneurs make money, not making money purely from the day-to-day business operations, right? Because you want to create value and then able to unlock the value. That's when we talk about exit. Institutional investors always look for exit. It means that if I put money in your business, within 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, we must be able to see the business able to create enough value, and then that value can be unlocked. Either you can list it or you can sell it off to another interested parties. So I thought today is trying to give a taste of a whole spectrum of entrepreneurship from where you start, to early stage, to it can eventually mature into involving institutional investors, the whole spectrum of it, because I've actually gone through the entire process. We have sold very large companies, a listed company, to large investors. So I've seen that. We have seen small founders sold it to another group of people for a small fee. So we have seen the two extreme, and yeah. That's all I have to outline today. It's a very interesting topic that it can each segment of this chart can be one session because it's a very detailed. It can go very deep dive into the topic. Yeah, it can go very technical as well. But because today I don't know what kind of audience that we have, we can't go too deep. So I just thought basically skim the surface and get an outline. Yep. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. I think we have a question here by Haris. He asked a very important question. Did you plan to be here where you are now when you decided to stop practicing clinical medicine many years ago?
No, actually, nothing was planned. Actually, you just seize opportunity and it comes, right? Because 20 years ago, I don't even know what is private equity. 20 years ago, private equity was not even fully established in US, right? And PE comes from US, right? When the large PE firms, there's a few big ones like TPG, KKR, Blackstone, Carlyle, these are very large, big PE groups, and they were still not even taking shape. The industry was still very early. In this part of the world, there's no PE firms in those days. In the 90s, late 90s, when I came out as a medical doctor, they are VCs actually. And sorry, I think I was talking about early on, but those terms are very foreign to us, right? So that time we heard about venture capital because of .com. In the 90s, is all the tech in Silicon Valley and all that. So we hear, people have great ideas, do apps, you get money, right? So that I was actually a little bit influenced by that. As I was clinician here, halfway preparing my part one, then came back, sit around waiting for MOH. Yeah, I said, of course, start company is easier. I want to start a company, and it was just because I saw a needs, and yeah, it was not planned out. I wouldn't say that I can see very clearly, right? But along the way, you realize that there's something else interesting, that the calling is different, and you just sort of morph into it. It wasn't planned. Yeah, I always thought that I want to do something different. That's all I know. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Ng asked, who are the customers? That question, I cannot understand very well. Okay, can I just have a show of hand among you guys? How many people are interested in doing business? How many of you out there are interested in entrepreneurship? It may not be medical related. It can be anything related. So we have 4 or 5 of them. Yes. So 5, 6. Okay. So maybe you all can unmute yourself and tell us what exactly what kind of ideas you have. Can we? Do you have time, Go?
Yeah. I have time. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just not just anyone want to share your ideas? Too shy? Angel investor. Wow, angel investor.
Yeah, they are not necessarily very angelic, I have to say.
I would think
that's
that
what they call them. Yeah.
What
So
does that mean? Angel
angel
investors.
investors are investors who are not from institution. They themselves are usually majority of the angel investors. They themselves are entrepreneurs. When they have enough net worth, then they start investing into ideas, and they have less expectations from the venture who takes a bit of risk. They're nicer, they're nicer part of the investment fraternity. To have to say that investment fraternity, they're not very nice people. Uh, Not very nice people.
Hmm.
And now I'm working very closely with private equity. Compared to the people that I meet in healthcare, they are quite nasty, to be honest.
Okay.
Right. So because they are very focused and loyal to their bottom line, they are. It's all about business. Really, it's very transactional. So to us, healthcare people, we have a bit of a lot of EQ. We find them very difficult, not
But
so
then
fun.
again, healthcare is becoming quite
Mm.
competitive, and therefore a lot of people are becoming quite unscrupulous. It's not
Yeah,
uncommon
so
now.
it is. It is. So
Yes, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, it's a balance we have to strike. Healthcare is a social healthcare company is a social enterprise. Um, so by right, we should be measuring them on financial profit and social profit. And
I
in the
see.
world of investment, the social profit is only being measured very recently because they have a new standard called ESG standard, environment, social, and governance standard (ESG). And all the private equity, venture cap, financial institution now talking ESG. Because in the past, it's all about bottom line, right? How much profit you made, right? If you messed up the environment, nobody care. You 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 screw up the social structure, fabric of social structure, nobody care in a real business world. And then governance means that you make a lot of money, but you funded a country's corrupt systems. But I don't care, as long as you make money. So those are the pre-ESG time. But now the world is moving towards that. Whether they pay lip service or they really like that,
Mm.
yet to be seen because these standards are very new. In fact, all the investments that we make, we have to do ESG compliance. We have to look at, we have to fill in audit once every year. Actually, there will be all these big accounting firms and companies to ask us to fill up your ESG compliant matrix and make sure that we are compliant. And because institutional investor wouldn't put money that has violated ESG. For example, if you are drug trafficker. Well, of course, you don't pass ESG, right?
Of
You
course.
are you are destroying the environment with your business. You are churning out too much toxic waste and messed up the diversity of the sea. You will fail the ESG, right? So
I
people.
wonder where Monsanto stands. Huh? Okay. Dr. Ng said, I once talked about a business idea with a very successful businessman. His first question was, who are your customers?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
if you
course.
want to, you are selling something, you need to know your customers. You need to know your customers really well and what
Yeah.
they want.
So that is a very good question to ask for every entrepreneur. It sounds like a simple question, but the question is actually the answer is very complex. In healthcare, in a private hospital, I always ask this question: who are our customers? We actually have two types of customers, two category of customers. Our primary customers are patients, but our secondary customers, I always say, are doctors. If you're a hospital business, because it's a B2B to C in this the world. They say patient is our primary customers, but a successful hospital institution, you also need to make sure your doctors are happy because doctors is also your customers because you form the relationship with them. I mean, of course, this is not in the textbook. You say, because to me is if you only talk about patient come first, but doctors come second because without the doctors, it's a service business, right? There's no patients. So the management philosophy is always remember that you have two sets of customers that we deal with. Then, of course, customer is patients, but a good answer would be what kind of patients, what kind of demographics, right? foreign, local, is this B40, M40, TE20, whatever? Are they cash paying, insurance paying? No, it can go very deep, because this simple question can come out with 20 slides just to answer these questions. The more granular the answers is, the better you know the business, then only you can address the needs of the customers.
That's why people listen in and then tap your phone. Okay, people as in you know who, and then they know what you want. They profile each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So they can send an information. For example, Betty would like to buy only this kind of food. She goes to this kind of grocers. Yes, they profile you so that even though they don't have customers, they have people who want customers and want to know their customers.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing. That's why people mine data. If you don't mine your data, if you have data and you don't mine it, then it's just a waste of time having data.
Yeah. So that's where informatics comes into picture again.
Yes.
That was my first love, actually.
I love it.
Now I still very much dependent on data, because
I don't know. I
because,
found,
like, for example, in healthcare, management, right? When I first joined UMSC, I was very young. I don't have sufficient experience, to be honest. But I have one differentiation factor is I crunch data, right? Because if I'm in my mid-30s trying to run a medical center, I didn't have sufficient experience. To be honest, I don't have sufficient experience, but I have a very important strategic tool, because my insight to the business was not from my experience, because it's not like, oh, I've done that hospital before, this is how we do it. That is tacit knowledge, right? What I did was I derived all the perspective and insight from analytics. I crunch the data. I just basically take a launch of data. I just do all my analysis. Then I say, oh, okay, actually, this specialty was not doing very well, and this specialty was doing very well. But among the 6 doctors that we have, 2 of them are doing very well. So my question is, why are they doing very well? This is how data analytics, data scientists look at it. So you ask me, do I know the answers? I don't know yet. But then I said, let's profile these 2 doctors. Why are they so successful? Then if we mine further, then I say, oh, they are successful because of their demographics, their behavior, their credential. No, that's how so we don't ask, we don't start off with hypothesis like what we do in research, then try to prove hypothesis. We actually start with nothing. We don't know what it is, right? So data mining is you discover the hidden trends, and using the hidden trends, then I go to the board and say, I think we should do this. They ask me, HM, how do you know? I say, I don't know, but my data tells me that is worth a shot, because I think these are the areas that we did not address it. And so we just do that. And it turns out that the data was right. I would have listened to my matron or one of the old professors that, HM, young man, you don't know UM. UM is like that one, this one can be one. You don't really, they don't. I listen, but I must validate it with data. And it turns out that if the data and what the senior professor tells you are in conflict, then you have to make a decision whether you trust the data or try a professor. And sometimes you realize that there are biasness in humans. The professor say cannot be done because maybe he really subconsciously think that it cannot be done, or he know can be done, he tell you cannot be done. Human, right? But my data says this is wrong. This is right. Data is always very objective, right? So I think any organization want to do well, data is everything.
yes, data is.
Yeah. The social capital part, if you the relationship part, data can't do much. That can't do much, right? If you have problems with CCAPs and you want CCAPs to be a bit more cooperative and a bit more lenient, data, I don't know whether it works or not. But I think if social capital is good, they are willing to hand holding you to go through the process. Maybe it's easier to get a license versus you don't talk to them, then you find out that they are so difficult, I can't get this, because it's a very common problems in private healthcare, regulatory barriers, as I said, which is a common problem across the world. If you go to Vietnam trying to start a healthcare facility, it's the same problem as well. They also have regulatory problem. In China, it's the same thing. Everywhere has a regulatory barriers. If it's healthcare, it's not something that you can start a business, start an idea, you can work. Nobody come after you. Government always come after you and monitor whether you make money in a legit and ethical way, whether anyone is harmed along the process, right? So yeah.
So how important is networking?
Social capital, as I said, very important.
I find that
Very important, right?
yes.
Yeah. The world is so connected. Okay, I find it important in the sense that I believe in social capital, right? Social capital comes from, if you are a very difficult person, you are terrible to work with. If you are in the industry for 20 years, people will avoid you, and then I don't think you will ever get funded, and your business will never work because you don't have goodwill, right? That's social capital.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not whether who you know, right? So I think referees, for example, when you apply for a job, right, those are social capital at work, right? And yeah, it's very important. Who knows who, and what people say about you. Whether it's up to me whether I believe what I hear, but that's social capital at play, because it's a capital, so it means that it can be negative also. If you have negative social capital, everyone run, right? If you have positive social capital, then of course you attract people towards you. You have talented partners who wants to work with you, right? People are willing to take risks just to collaborate with you. Those are social capital at work, right? So because you are trustworthy, your credibility is good, of course it's easier for you to move about in a business, compared you have bad reputations, and everyone say, hey, that guy he's a terrible guy, man, cannot be trusted. He screwed his last business partner, how many years ago, you didn't hear about the story. So it is like that, even banks also do that. We call it KYC, know your client, right? So now you want to open a bank account, the bank officer say, do I know you? Who recommend you? So that's social capital at work, right? So yeah.
Okay, it's been very good. We've done 1 hour and 15 minutes, like nothing.
Okay, good.
Social capital. I'm very interested in this social capital. Okay, is there any more questions? Are there any more questions? Because if not, we will end here. And I really would like to know more, actually, more on private equity. Maybe one day we can meet up and have a chat over
The
dinner.
best way is to read. I firmly believe in that, because I can only tell you that much, right? So I can't ask Dr. Betty, can you tell me all about heart failure, right? You say the best way is please read these 3 books.
That's not true. I can tell you everything about heart failure.
Yeah, but you need to invest a lot of time to do that, right? That would take weeks or years to know the subject,
I can tell you everything about heart failure, but I cannot teach you how to diagnose heart failure in just one session.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, similarly, so I hope today I have given you sufficient breadth.
Yes.
Not the depth. I actually was intentionally leave out the depth, because I think that needs, but it's just give you a flavor, what it is, from the perspective of entrepreneur, and also actively involved in healthcare investments through the institutional structure like private equity and venture cap, as well as informal way, because we also do smaller projects and investing in friends projects and things like that. So it's a whole spectrum, but we all started off unstructured, borrow money, fund the business with credit card, which I've done it before. Don't do that. And
Really?
almost went bankrupt myself. We went through that. I mean, so all the textbook roller coasters of entrepreneurship, I've done it myself.
So yeah, I mean, being
yeah.
an entrepreneur is about roller coaster, because sometimes, yeah, I think because there are many things that cannot be planned, even though it's going smoothly. Who would have expected this pandemic? And yeah,
So that's where the capacity comes to, right? As you get older, you have better capacity. Your buffer is better. You can take more risks, right? So when
okay,
you're younger,
you said something about not getting married early, and I think that I beg to differ, because I got married really, really early, like in my 20, when I was 23 or 24, while I was still in medical school. And I actually have a mind to actually do business, but everything was put on hold by my marriage and the fact that I wanted to do clinical medicine and specialize and then subspecialize. And only now when my mind is completely clear of my family and my my career is not going anywhere as a cardiologist anymore, because it's a very standard practice. I finally can put my ideas and my thoughts into business scheme. So I think that as old as I may be, I think it's still not too late, right, to start there.
Of course, not too late. Average life expectancy of Malaysian ladies 78 years old.
So, okay. Yeah.
And
of course, I can still be a prime minister at 93, so I'm not too worried about that.
We have 3 companies that do very well within 5 years.
Okay,
and
we have seen at this point of time.